Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood. And my very special guest today is Amanda Rees with Age Bold. Good morning.
Good morning, Kim. Excited to be here.
Great. It's so good to have you because we're going to talk about caregiving and the science of aging well. And that seems to be a passion of yours, correct?
Absolutely.
So you've been a caregiver and because of this journey, it's my understanding that that's what precipitated your business. So tell us about it.
Yeah, thank you. So I had the somewhat unusual, but I think increasingly normal experience of being a caregiver early in my 20s. And I was living with my grandmother, who was in her 80s at the time. And I would say we were living together for about 4 or 5 years before I really started to understand I was becoming and acting as her caregiver. She had lived on her own for a really long time and started to have a series of health issues that required more support. So onset of dementia, loss of balance, and a number of falls that resulted in some emergency visits and sort of follow-up, and then loss of her vision and a cancer diagnosis. So it was quite a lot to be navigating. And there was a lot that came from that experience. But the biggest one for me was having this preview to what it would be like to age and thinking through how I would envision or how I would like to see my own aging experience. And one of the things for my grandmother was the power of movement and physical activity in keeping her strong physically and emotionally, as well as just maintaining her balance so that she wasn't going to continue having falls and perhaps continue getting injured from that. And so I had a background in dance and fitness instruction, and I ended up becoming a specialist in balance training and fall prevention training. But it was really inspired by working with her one-on-one and then starting sort of a local business and now much larger online business around helping anyone use the power of movement to age better, because I think it's pretty universal that anyone wants to age, independently, vibrantly, with as much health as they can. And so often there's some opportunities exercise and movement can have to support that. So that's really what the science of aging well is today. We're really focused on movement as medicine and how we can make those kinds of programs and experiences more available to more Americans.
Well, I'm glad to have you on the show because I experienced that particular thing in my own family. And so, because, when you have in-laws that, sat all day and watch TV.
Yes.
Then health declined and health declined. And so because of that, probably that one big thing, not moving enough. So I'm very passionate about what you do. So so let's talk about the link between healthy aging and caregiving.
Yes. So my experience, I think, really had this link between, I believe caregivers are often some of the most excited, enthusiastic, and sort of intuitively understand this is what I'm doing to support somebody else, particularly if someone is aging. How would I sort of design my own aging experience to age a little bit differently? And I think there's a lot of opportunity around that moment or that understanding of I see a pattern, I see something happening. Can I take an action or be proactive for myself? Because we're all aging. And there's a big difference between aging with your health and independence and aging and feeling like those are things that you might be losing. And so I think caregivers see that, live that, experience that, and then are also in the best position to say, I have sort of an insight that someone who might not have been a caregiver might not have. And I like taking that insight and then supporting our members and putting that into action.
That's awesome, because I think it's so important. And, one of the reasons we do the podcast is to try to educate as many people as possible about all the things that they, should expect or could expect, so I'm really glad about that.
And one more thing I'll just say about caregiving, because I'm quite passionate about it, but there is a unfortunate statistics around the impact caregiving has on a caregiver's health. So by wanting to care for someone else, you sometimes, and I experience this as well, you might compromise, I'll put aside my workout, or I will feel guilty if I take time for that self-care. And so when we think about the investment in your own health as a caregiver, so maybe not down the road, but like in that moment, how do you stay resilient, and how do you use maybe exercise to help you, stay strong and resilient as a caregiver when you're in the thick of it?
Yeah, that I can appreciate. We see that happen a lot because people are always thinking, well, I'll do it later. I can't do it right now because I got to do this. So it's hugely important to take care of yourself. And we tell caregivers that all the time. You got to take care of yourself. It's okay to do that. So
yes, we found across our members, a lot of our members at Bold, which is the company, the business that I run now. Caregiving is actually one of the top 3 reasons someone says they have trouble keeping a healthy exercise habit, because unexpected things come up, or they feel the guilt. And so helping support someone and finding that link between caregiving and their own healthy aging is really important.
So I believe I heard you talk about movement as medicine. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What do you mean?
Yes. So everybody moves every day for the most part. But there's a different association when you say movement versus when you say physical activity versus when you say exercise. And so this idea of moving is really that inherent, innate thing that all of us do, but has real therapeutic power to it. And there's little tips and strategies you can have to get the most out of movement. And so we like to talk about movement as medicine, more than because it sounds catchy, but because we want movement to feel as accessible and inclusive as possible. And sometimes the word exercise or being physically active or fitness doesn't have that same sense of inclusivity. And so movement is medicine is really around linking how we move to having really good benefits. And so there's a lot of exercise science and research showing how, physical activity is something that everybody can have access to the power in order to help them age better. And there's a lot of science to validate that. So without going too deep, we really started with the focus around how do you use movement and exercise to condition your balance and build strength at any age. And so the type of moves that are going to be best for somebody who maybe has been super active and super fit are going to look different than exercise and movement for someone who has knee arthritis or maybe COPD or hasn't been exercising for a while and so needs to actually build those basics and fundamentals. And at Bold, we like to think about how we can serve and support everyone wherever they might be starting with finding ways to use the power of movement to age better.
Cool. So your company is focused on the science of, fall prevention and balance.
Mm-hmm.
Should caregivers listening know about falls and balance?
Yes. So falls are unfortunately very common, and they're the number one cause for hip fractures in the US. They're also, highly associated with diabetes, arthritis, COPD, often because when a person has a chronic condition that maybe seems like a limitation to exercising and they start to become more sedentary or less active, balance is one of those things that can start to decrease and decline. And rather than focus on the decline, which sometimes people think it's a one-way road, it's not, it's a two-way road. And so I want everyone listening to know you can improve your balance and strength at any age, no matter how you might have felt it's changed, or maybe you've lost some over time, you can absolutely build it back. And there's, lots of research and science, but practicing things like weight shifting, moving side to side, moving forwards and back. Some of it is working on your posture. And then actually getting a little bit comfortable, feeling that moment when you're off balance and learning how to recover your balance, which is a skill you can learn and you can practice. All of that can actually reduce the chance of having a fall or reduce the chance of getting injured when you do have a fall, because you're a little more prepared to catch yourself when you're starting to feel off balance. So it's a little bit about, we say, embracing the wiggles of, you won't improve your balance or strength if you aren't challenging it. And sometimes when you challenge it, it feels a little uncomfortable and you feel those wiggles. And so if you can learn to say, okay, wiggles mean improvement and growth and challenge, that's where you start to see the benefits come.
That's cool. So what tips do you give caregivers to bring movement into their life and routine? What kind of things would benefit them that they can do, on their own to kind of help, even themselves or who they're taking care of?
Absolutely. So the first thing is every minute counts. Don't think that you need to set aside 25, 35, an hour in order to get a workout. You can get the benefit of moving in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, wherever you might be able to fit that in. And so thinking about it as an investment in yourself or a tool to stay, less stressed, more resilient. Don't, find those little opportunities, even if it's, 5 or 10 minutes. And then, thinking about ways, maybe you want to be close to the person that you're caregiving for, you want to have the ability to be close at hand. There are so many online programs that exist. So you can, at Bold, you can visit www.agebold.com, and we have free assessments and some free classes, blogs with lots of information, but you can access it whenever you want to be moving. And so going on, finding a 5 or 10 minute class, you can actually do it at different levels with the person you might be caregiving for. And so sometimes we think about my time versus their time, or there's an opportunity to actually fit exercise in as something you could do together. And lastly, I would say, just being compassionate with yourself as you're getting back into it. So it's not about having the perfect workout. It's not about having, always progressing and getting better and better. Sometimes it's around just showing up, and moving is the win itself. So those are my three things that I learned how to practice. And I would definitely encourage others, if they're looking for ways to be more active, find more movement while they're caregiving, you could try.
So let me kind of ask you something. So when you're thinking about balance, what's like one simple thing that I could do today
Mm-hmm.
to help with balance that I could do in the office,
Yes.
so that helps with balance?
Sure. Like some sample exercises. So one thing you could do for your lower body strength are heel raises. So standing with your feet flat on the floor and then lifting both heels, really strengthening your lower legs. That's one. Another one that's going to sound almost too simple, sidestepping. So there's a lot of times we are walking forwards, right? And we rarely practice moving sideways or moving backwards. But you can't expect that anytime you're off balance is only moving forwards and you learn how to catch yourself. It's the dog or the unexpected ball rolling to you from the side. We don't really move a lot side to side unless we're playing a sport or dancing or practicing it intentionally. So doing side to side steps, you can start to make that more challenging by turning your head as you're stepping, taking bigger steps. And then sit to stand is something that I think almost anyone has access to, which is getting from a seated position to standing without using your arms. So when you notice someone's pressing down with their arms to stand up, you're supporting yourself with your arms, and that might be necessary for safety. It's a good test to see in 30 seconds, how many times can I go from seated to standing just using the muscles in my legs. And at Bold, if you visit our website, we have adapted this. And this is something that is pretty standardly used by healthcare professionals and fitness professionals to measure and track changes over time. So if you want to test it out, we've made it really easy to test it. You can even see how you compare to others in your age group if that's something you're interested in. But, can you do 10? Can you do 20? Maybe if you do it in another 3 months or so, are you staying the same? Are you improving? Do you have a little setback? That's a good sort of metric we can test. And then the balance on one leg is the bonus one, I would say, is, we at Bold work with a lot of individuals who aren't able to balance on one leg for 10 seconds. Sometimes that's, that can seem intimidating, but that is a really good metric for how your balance is. And so ideally, we want to support people in building that single leg balance, that single leg stance. But it's okay if you can't. And there's programs that we have to help you build up the balance to be able to do that.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Because my chair rolls. I'm thinking, I don't think I can do this in my chair because it rolls.
Oh, yes, definitely don't do that in a chair that rolls. We have some safety guidelines for you want a sturdy chair. You can even place it against a wall.
And I've already figured out if I'm going to fall at home, it's going to be because of the dogs. They follow me around, they lay down. I don't expect them like behind me, you go back up, so I'm thinking they're my worst things at the moment. So
sure. Some of balance is just learning to navigate your environment, right? When you're at a movie theater or a sports game, scooching down the aisles and navigating stairs or narrow walkways.
So Amanda, if somebody wants to find you, let's talk. Tell them how they find you.
Yes, you can visit agebold.com, and you can also send us a note or reach out if you have any questions. For all the caregivers out there, something else I'll share is that we do partner with health insurance organizations. So it's likely that you already have access to a Bold membership today through your health insurance. And so I encourage you, if you go to our website, you can check and see if it's included just by learning more about, who we're partnering with. So,
and your email address
is amanda@agebold.com.
Perfect. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Such good information.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Kim.
Thank you.
Stay well.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.